Although tennis is only a game, it's often a really important part of people's lives. And when you get into the situation where you keep on losing matches over and over again, it's a horrible feeling that can become extremely disheartening and really start to negatively impact your enjoyment for the game. But often it can be more than that. It can start to change your mood and negatively affect other areas of your life as well. Now, for some people, you'll hear that and you'll think that sounds ridiculous. But for others of you, you are going to know exactly what I mean, either because you've been through it in the past or because you're currently going through it at the moment. And if you are, this video is going to help you a lot, because I'm going to explain what's probably the most important thing for you to work on to fix the problem so that you can start to win more matches. Now, some of what I'm about to explain might not be very nice to hear, but in my honest opinion, it is absolutely essential for you to accept it and wrap your head around it if you want to address your current situation and be able to win more matches. So whatever level you play at, whether it's the 4-5, the 4-0, the 3-5 level, if you go and watch a tournament at that level, what you'll see is that the players that get to the final and that win the tournament, they're the most consistent players. They make the least unforced errors. And the players that go out in the earlier rounds, they're the least consistent players. They make the most unforced errors. So if you keep on losing, it means that you're making too many unforced errors. And if you want to be able to win more, you need to make less unforced errors. And once you wrap your head around that, the next key piece to understand is that the vast majority of unforced errors happen because players just go for the wrong shot at the wrong time, or flat out, they just try and hit the shot they don't have the ability to execute on a consistent enough basis. So it's really important to wrap your head around this, and this is where gathering data comes in very handy, because most players have poor awareness about what's happening during matches. They don't necessarily recognize why they're winning points and why their opponents are winning points. And a lot of players falsely think that it's because their opponents are hitting loads of winners and loads of great shots and forcing them into errors. But then when you watch them back, that isn't the reality of what's happening at all. Players aren't being forced into errors. Players are maybe being pushed into difficult positions, but then they're just trying to be too aggressive, and that's why they miss the shot, because they're not good enough to execute that shot. So it wasn't a true unforced error, it was just poor shot selection. So it's really important for you to record yourself to find out exactly why you're winning and losing your points, because what you'll see is what I've just described. Most of the points that you're losing are happening because you're going for the wrong shot. So recording yourself is really important. Now, for a very small percentage of you, you'll have heard what I've just said and thought, well, that doesn't apply to me. I do try and play high percentage tennis, but my problem is when I try and play high percentage tennis, I still miss and make unforced errors anyway. And if that's the case for you, then obviously you want to continue to work on improving your technique so you can try and get more control over your shots and make less errors. But it also tells you you're being really restricted by your level of hand-to-eye coordination. The good news there, though, is that you can actually improve that using brain-based training. And if you'd like to learn more about it, I've got a class that's going to teach you, and I'll place a link to it down in the description. But for the rest of you, probably the hardest part about fixing this problem is going to be accepting this for the reality that it is. And I find this is something a lot of players struggle with, and it can be really hard for them to hear, because often, even once you have this conversation with players, they say things like, or come up with excuses like, yeah, but I just like to be aggressive. I just like to hit winners and kind of play points on my own terms because that's what I enjoy. And yeah, we all want to be able to do that. Who wouldn't want to be able to rip winners the whole time and just play every point on their own terms? But what you've got to accept is that isn't the reality for the vast majority of players. We see pros doing it on TV because they're the best of the best of the best. That's why they can execute those shots. But for most regular people, a short forehand isn't an opportunity to put the ball away, because that's a really high level skill to execute that on a consistent basis. A high forehand isn't an opportunity to rip the ball, because again, that is a really high level skill, and you've just got to wrap your head around it and accept it. Now, if you have the ability to hit those shots consistently, then do it. But if you have the ability to do that, it's very unlikely that you would have clicked on this video, because you'll be playing high-level college tennis or high-level open tennis rather than watching YouTube videos about ways to win more matches and improve different aspects of your game. And again, I know this isn't nice to hear, but it's coming from a place of me wanting to help you not to lose matches, because I know how frustrating it can be for players when they keep losing matches. So you've just got to wrap your head around it, you've got to accept it and start to be more tactically savvy. One of the big skills in tennis and all other sports is having the discipline to do what you need to do. So if you can accept that, you can then start to work on a solution, which is developing your tactical savviness and awareness, because there are three distinct phases of a tennis point. We can either be in neutral, we can be attacking, or we can be defending, and the correct shot to choose is going to be based on the phase of play that you're in and also your ability level, because the greater your ability level, the higher degree of shots you can execute consistently. But the golden rule to keep in mind there is, if you can't execute a shot 8 out of 10 times consistently, then it's not a good shot to implement in a match situation. So we're going to start the point with a serve. If you have a really good, maybe big, maybe powerful, maybe you've got a lot of spin and you can place the ball well, so you've got a really good serve, then potentially your first serve is an attacking opportunity for you. You can take advantage of the point. If you don't have a good first serve, then potentially you want to think of that as more of a neutral opportunity. You just got to kind of get the ball in play in a reasonable position and kind of neutralize things. Obviously, if you miss your first serve and you're now doing your second serve, you definitely want to be thinking that as a neutral opportunity for most people, or maybe even a defensive opportunity. If you really struggle on second serve, you just got to get the ball in, otherwise you double fault, and that's basically an unforced error. We've then got the return of serve. And if your opponent has a massive serve, then maybe that's a defensive opportunity for you. Maybe you need to be back right behind the baseline to give yourself time so that then you can get the ball back in play. And when you're defending, your goal is to try and get back to neutral. If your opponent has, they missed their first serve and they're putting a second serve in, and you know that their second serve is weak, then potentially when you're returning serve, that might be an attacking opportunity for you. But again, that's going to be dependent on your skill level. If you have the ability to step in on a second serve and be fairly aggressive consistently, that's a good shot to go for. If you don't have that ability because it's a relatively high level skill, then you shouldn't be thinking of that second serve as an attacking opportunity, even if theoretically it's a weak serve. It's just an opportunity to neutralize the rally and get back to neutral. So then once we're in the rally situation, what I'm going to define as a neutral ball is, okay, we're just going cross court to cross court forehand. Both of you are probably going to be trying to play the ball deep with margin, so higher over the net, fairly deep in the court. And what your aim is there is to wait for your opponent to make a mistake. So either they just miss their shot or they give you a weaker ball. So a weaker ball is maybe your opponent just hits a slightly shorter ball that then allows you to step in. But just because you get a short forehand and now you're in an attacking position, how you attack is going to be dependent on your ability level and the shots that you can execute 8 out of 10 times on a consistent basis. If you do have that ability to, hit that aggressively down the line, then go for it. But that's going to be dependent on your skill. If you don't have the ability to hit it aggressively down the line, maybe you're just going to be guiding it down the line. It could even be a continental grip. You're just going to get in there and you're just going to place the ball down the line and follow it to the net. So you haven't gone for an aggressive shot. You haven't tried to hit right by the line or anything like that. You've aimed for a big target, but now you're at the net, and that's placed a lot of pressure on your opponent, and it's increased the likelihood that they're going to make a mistake. So when you do get that shorter ball from a neutral situation, it's your opportunity to try and be more aggressive, but that's going to be a relative thing based on your ability. If, on the other hand, your opponent hits a very good shot, they push you back deep, or maybe they push you out wide, you have to respect that, and you have to respect that now you're in a more defensive position. And this is often where it can go so wrong for people. They're in a defensive position and they try and be too aggressive and they make an unforced error. When you're in a defensive position, your job is to try and get back to neutral. So if I'm pushed back here somewhere, I'm just going to be trying to go back. I could go deep cross court, I could go deep down the middle, but I'm going to try and get back to neutral and then hopefully get into that cross court rally situation. Or if it goes down the line and I'm on the backhand, into a backhand to backhand situation, and I'm going to try and get back into neutral, and then I'm going to be patient and wait for my opponent to give me an easy ball so then I can get a more attacking situation. And it's just cycling through this. Now, dependent on your level, Normally this cycle doesn't take very long. At the 3-5 level, the serve goes in, the return gets missed, point over, or maybe you get 2 or 3 shots. If you've got 2 very tactically savvy players, this could go on a while, and that's generally what you're going to see when you start to get to the finals and the later stages in tournaments at different levels. People are understanding this when they're defending, they're kind of neutralizing things and trying to get back to neutral. When they're attacking, but they're doing it fairly conservatively. And you just want to train yourself to think about this and train yourself over and over again to choose the appropriate shot in each scenario. And obviously, over time, you want to develop your ability, improve your technique, potentially use some of the brain-based training that I mentioned earlier to improve your skill so that you have the ability to hit better and better shots on a consistent basis, because the better the shot you can hit, the more different types of tactics you can implement, and the ball starts to change. So, what becomes an easier ball, more and more balls get more attackable, the greater your skill level is. But it's just training yourself to think like this. So 2 more things that I want to talk about briefly before I close the video out, but I think they're really important to mention. The first one is that this starts with the way that you practice. Most people, they practice really sloppy tennis. They make way too many unforced errors. They try and go for aggressive shots and they just miss the ball, and then that's what they do when they play matches. So you want to start by developing consistency in practice. You go into every rally ever on a tennis court with the mindset of you are not going to miss. You are going to make the ball. So when you're warming up in the service boxes, you're playing a point. You might not have told your partner that, but you are playing a point, and you want every single shot that you hit to land inside the service box. And then when you go to the back of the court, you're rallying down the middle, exactly the same. It is a point. You make every single ball. You use good footwork with intensity. You set up in the best position possible. You recover, you stay light on your toes. You make every single ball until your opponent misses, and you win the point that they don't even know they're playing. Same thing when you're going cross court, and by training yourself to do this over and over again and practice in a really consistent way, it's going to make a massive difference when it comes to matches. Now remember, I'm not talking about just floating the ball back in play. I'm talking about playing the best shot you can consistently at your level and working to improve the quality of that shot over time. And the second thing that I want to mention briefly is just about some people, they really struggle with shot selection even when they know what they're supposed to do. And the way I think about this, because I do brain-based training, so I think a lot about how the brain functions, and everything we do in life and on the court is controlled by a brain. And we have a part of the brain at the front of our frontal lobe responsible for executive function and decision making. And if you are doing something that you know is wrong or not in your best interest, that is a poor decision to make. So I should be going cross court and I just cannot stop myself going down the line. That points to the part of the brain responsible for executive function and says, maybe this part of the brain isn't working as well as it needs to, or maybe we're not getting enough blood, we're not getting enough oxygen, we're not getting enough glucose to this part of the brain, and that's why we can't make good decisions on court. So that's why fitness can be really important, because if you lack fitness, we might not get the blood flow to this part of the brain in the way that we want, or potentially you just might need to train it so it improves how it functions. And the good news is that's something you can also do using brain-based training if you'd like to learn how, and I've got that class in the description that's going to teach you more about it. But hopefully everything that I've explained in this video makes sense. I know some of it might not have been nice to hear, but honestly, with the best intentions in the world, I want to help you become a better player. It's frustrating when you lose. I want to help you win more. Understanding and accepting this is just such a big piece of the puzzle for the vast majority of players. So any questions you've got, leave me down in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video or at least found it helpful and don't hate me by now, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, really helps me out if you could do that as well. I'll catch you next time.